No, seriously, this is not the Wrath of Khan. This is Star Trek Picard. The third season is drawing a lot from Trek movies of old, which is both good and can sometimes be a bit of a pain in the backside. Regardless, this episode is backed with tension and emotional turmoil at various points. However, does the Battle of 17 Seconds hold up for viewers, or is it a not too subtle attempt to mimic the Wrath of Khan? Spoiler warning, this is our full in-depth review of Star Trek Picard Season 3 Episode 3. As such, you have been warned, turn away now if you do not want spoilers. I mean it, seriously. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack. Right, get commenting. While you're watching this review, I want to know your best moment from this episode, or on the flip side, your worst moment. Go comment. No, really, go on, come on. Anyway, hit that subscribe button here, or on your way to the comment section, and if you feel like it, that like button as well, which is there, I think? Don't forget, this weekend on Sunday at 9 PM GMT, we'll be live on YouTube talking about Picard Season 3 with some guests. Make sure to tune in, as it's going to be one hell of a discussion. Okay? Engage. This episode was very dense. There's a lot to unpack and a lot of scenes that take place. Rightfully so, you might be confused by some of the events which have taken place in episode 3. Like, we've got to unpack the fact Changelings are back, Vadic has a portal gun gunning around the Titan, and Captain Shaw almost gets killed. Seems they're not keen to kill him off right away, but we did come close, it seems. Anyway, let's get to our review. The flashback sequence at the start of the episode was rather touching. While the de-aging was a little iffy here and there, diving back into Star Trek's past is fantastic. It is lore we have learnt about before. This is William Riker's son, Thaddeus, and how he was born aboard the USS Titan, the Lunar-class starship, not the same one in this season. We've also got the cameo of Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi. We know she'll turn up sometime soon in the third season, so it's only a case of waiting to see, but it was nice to get a flashback of her here and there. I do wish this scene could have been somewhere else, perhaps in the ready room on the Enterprise E. Naturally, set designs do cost a fortune, so it's not possible. Therefore, reusing a second season set of Guinan's bar does make sense. But it would have been cool to make the location elsewhere. The opening of this episode makes sense by the end. It's not only part of Picard's need to see Jack, especially when he's practically on his near deathbed, but also the conflict between Riker and Picard. Picard does bring up Riker's fear of loss. This is about the loss of his son, which was explored in Season 1. I mean, Riker also brings up the fact he had a son to Jack earlier in the episode, though I feel as if more emotional weight is when Picard mentions it on the bridge of a Titan. This is where the conflict between the two senior officers does start to heat up. We'll cross over this again later in the review. The main crux of this episode, which I think is the most debated among fans, is the conversation between Picard and Beverly Crusher. Obviously, learning that Picard has a secret son that Beverly never told him about in 20 years is going to be hard to explain. However, I think this episode did the actual best job it could in explaining it. I have to remind you, characters can make bad decisions and still be in character. I will say, I think Beverly's reasoning for not telling Picard about his son is valid. This is a woman who has lost her entire family, parents, husband, and son. She doesn't want to go through that again, and rightly so. Every time she wants to tell Picard, another reason not to tell him kept coming up. We do learn that Picard was targeted a lot during the Romulan relocation effort, kidnapped by disgruntled refugees, nearly killed while negotiating with Romulan Praetor, etc, etc. Do I think these reasons are valid? Yes. Do I think Beverly's decision is valid? No. She deprived Picard of a choice in order to protect her child, and not have to protect the child of the legendary Jean-Luc Picard. Even in the next generation, we have fake Picard's children being targeted for their fake connection to Picard. Look at you, Jason Vigo. Picard's feelings towards this are also very valid, and his anger towards Beverly for deciding for him. There is even a note of Picard viewing his father to be abusive, which adds to his fear of becoming his father. But the decision was not Beverly's to make in his regard for this. Also, we explored his father and that dynamic through Season 2 of Picard, which is really cool to add to this season. And I want James Callis back in Picard, is that too much to ask for? With the strike dealing heavy damage to the Titan, Shaw gets taken out of action and gives command of the Titan over to Captain Riker. It makes sense that Riker takes command, given that 7 of 9 is still relieved of duty. However, while it's good to have Riker, I do wish and hope that 7 gets her time in the chair sooner rather than later, especially if all the clamouring about a 7 spin-off show is true. Having Jeri Ryan actually get another moment to shine in commanding a ship would be excellent. An interesting facet of this episode is that there would be an actual disagreement between Picard and Riker. Both had different ideas about what to do in the situation, flee or fight. Both were essentially wrong, as the Shrike was one step ahead of them each time. Riker is put in a position of authority above Picard, and Picard's not used to that. Every single time it's been Riker as first officer to Picard. Regardless, Riker commands the Titan effectively while on the back foot. It'll be interesting to see how long he stays in the chair though. It is also fascinating that Riker kinda gives up in the end. The Titan's drifting into the nebula towards the gravity well. He orders Picard off at a bridge and says he's killed them all. It's very blunt, it's quite a thing to say on the bridge of a starship. Our next gen characters have changed a lot. Riker is not the same man he was 20 years ago, and neither is Jean-Luc. As Jack Crusher pointed out last week, is anyone really the same as you remember them? I think this common theme will come up a lot throughout the third season. Worf and Rafi sound like an interesting combo when the trailers started to suggest that they would be working together in their own plot. Also, this was suggested in numerous interviews. I will say, I really do like this pairing. Worf in earlier Trek series was full of anger and rage. He wasn't the best father and he had a lot of family issues. This is almost identical to Rafi, who is struggling with anger and rage, and also has a very strained relationship with her family. I will say, the quote of Worf saying his full name and titles,
Son of Moog, House of Martok, son of Sergei, House of Roshenko, bane to the Duras family, slayer of Gowron. I have made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar?
Bane of House of Duras, Slayer of Gowron, and then just finishing with, I made some chamomile tea, is so Worf. It goes over with,
good tea, nice house.
Good tea, nice house, which is my favourite clip. I do hope his relationship with his son is much better now, but running around with Starfleet intelligence and tracking down this conspiracy probably doesn't help. But talking about Alexander Rozhenko, it seems like he has his own Klingon house now, with Worf saying the House Rozhenko, which is very cool to hear and I like it. It's also interesting about Worf's current status is, he is working for Starfleet intelligence, but does seem he's not active in Starfleet. He describes his best as motives aligned with Starfleet intelligence, but he is a subcontractor. We have seen Worf in some trailers and images in a Starfleet-style jacket, which looks awesome by the way, I want one. So perhaps he'll reactivate his Starfleet service later on in the series. Rafi and Worf, though finding a man who paid off Sneed to sell it to Luco, and some quite, I'm sure, illegal interrogation techniques from Rafi, they do find the attack on a recruitment building and the theft of a portal gun was just a diversion. They seem to be under the assumption that something much more valuable was stolen from a Daystrom Institute. Though I do have to wonder about Daystrom's cataloging system and security protocols, as if one thing was stolen, wouldn't you just do an inventory to see if anything else is stolen? What could have been stolen from Daystrom? What is more valuable than the giant portal gun? We're going to have to keep watching, aren't we? Because they're not going to tell us now. It's too much to ask for. So, now we have our answer to what this big conspiracy is. Changelings seem to have infiltrated the Alpha Quadrant again, and want to cause the Federation to crumble because of their hatred of solids. I also really enjoyed how it was Jack and Seven who were able to figure out that there was an imposter on the Titan. Shaw was the one who may have spoken the question, how do they keep finding us? But it was Jack seeing the trail on the blood of the floor that made him realise somehow they were leaving a trail. Season 3 so far is doing an amazing job at really servicing these characters in the best way possible. And I think how Seven was used in this episode was excellent. Using a backstory of the Fenris Rangers to make her realise how they might be leaving a trail and there was someone who sabotaged the ship and it wasn't just damaged. We also get a little nod to Odo in this episode, as Worf tells us that after the Dominion War, a schism formed in the great link between Odo, basically preaching peace towards solids and the Changelings' deep hatred and fear towards the solids. Odo contacted him about this, an old friend of honour. I wonder then if Valek's goons are also Changelings, and just taking the appearance of these bird-like alien species. It would further explain why they made intentional notice to this peculiar dust on the vaporized aliens aboard the SS Ilios in episode 1. Okay, this episode was written by Jane Maggs and Cindy Apple, and unlike the last two episodes, we have a new old director, the great Jonathan Frakes. The title 17 seconds is very clearly explained to us in this episode. The longest 17 seconds of when your child's life is in danger, and you're in limbo. Picard has his own 17 seconds moment in the turbolift, during his journey to sickbay when Jack's life is in danger. Frakes did a great job directing himself in this episode, as we got to see a side of him that we rarely have seen before. The conflict between Riker and Picard is something we've never got, mainly as Gene Roddenberry was not a fan of that. Therefore, The Next Generation never explored the idea, unless it was that one time alternate timeline episode where Riker tells Picard to shut up. That was just an alien dream though. Obviously we can say a lot of this episode was inspired by the Wrath of Khan. Two ships hidden from each other's sensors and stuck in a nebula, and I think these comparisons are very surface level in detail. Sure, it may have been two blind ships in a nebula, however in the Wrath of Khan, the Enterprise and the Reliant were essentially equal in power and disability. The only difference was captains that commanded those ships, and it was almost purely about who was the better strategist. This ship battle, from the get-go, is asymmetrical. The Shrike is a warship, the Titan is an underdog. The Shrike knows what the Titan is, and the Shrike has the port gun to control the path of the Titan. It's very much more of a no-win situation than the Battle of the Mutara Nebula. Those differences are what allows this battle to stand apart from Trek's history. But sure. Last week we had a very incredible acting with Gates McFadden and Sir Patrick Stewart, and I think many actors brought their A-game to this episode. We saw a side of Riker which we've never seen before, that made sense for the situation. Patrick and Gates again this episode bring so much more emotion to their performances. We really get to see how big this decision by Beverly to not tell Picard about his own son means to him. He's angry, he's upset, and rightly so. And to see the relief on his face when Jack is not dead, which again every interview made us know wasn't the case. Thank you Paramount PR, excellent job. But Patrick helped sell the scene and it was awesome. We also get some excellent character combinations and interactions in this episode. Rafi and Worf, Sidney Crash LaForge being so nice to Commander 7, and also Riker said he had a son to Jack. The new dynamic to Picard and Riker, it was all great character work going on. I look forward to seeing more of other characters' interactions in interesting combinations as the third season does continue. Overall, this was an enjoyable episode. The character acting was insanely well done. We got some beautiful ship combat sequences between the Shrike and Titan, and many more cool shots. We've had some mysteries revealed, the Changeling threat, but a lot of mysteries still remain, including more. I mean, what else was stolen from Daystrom? What was the dream sequence of Connector Branches and the Red Door? Something to do with Changelings? Something else? We'll have to keep watching to find out, and don't worry, we'll have plenty of theories, plenty of Star Trek theories. So what did you think of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 3? If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. But for now, I've been Captain Jack, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you later on in the week. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye. Don't you give me that sarcastic ass Vulcan salute, motherfucker? That's going to be outtakes.